So I'm sick of working three jobs, is my point, and I'm ready to go down to like 20 to 25 hours a week.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. I just wanted to give a shout out for anyone who is interested in being a guest. It is completely anonymous, so we'll let you choose a fake name and we will hide identifiable information so you can come on the show and share freely. It is a full hour to an hour and a half with me, Barbara, and we'll do a deep dive on your finances, where you're doing well, where maybe you're struggling, and come up with a game plan for how to reach your financial goals. To be a guest, you just need to put a submission in either on Instagram or on our website, www.futurerichpodcast.com. And you just need to be a female. As we've said before, this podcast is produced with Amy, Alex, and myself, so an all-female team, and our goal is to help improve financial education amongst women. So that is why we interview women about their finances. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in being a guest, please put in a submission on our website, www.futurerichpodcast.com, or send us a message on Instagram. Hello, and welcome to Financials Podcast Future Rich. I'm your host, Barbara Ginty, and I'm also a CFP, which is a certified financial planner. And I am here with my guest today, Jane. Hi, Jane. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So why don't you tell the listeners and myself a little bit about you? So like how old you are, what you do for a living, how much you make, where you are, all that jazz.
Okay. So I am 44 years old. I live in the Southwest. I work as a therapist and I have a few different kind of jobs around that I'll get into a little bit more. And then do you want my kind of like gross income right now?
Yeah, what's your gross?
Okay. Well, okay. So I'll just get into the jobs a little bit. I have a W-2 job.
Okay.
And then I have a very part-time private practice.
Okay.
And then I have a second private practice that I can talk a little bit more about.
Okay.
So my gross income at the W-2 job, I make 75,000.
Okay.
At my private practice, I make about 900 a month.
Okay.
And
And
then
that's gross
and that's
for the part-time one, the first part-time one, 900 a month gross.
yeah, and that is gross. And then for the second one, um I I think I make about I probably didn't do this math very well. I pay myself about 3,000 a month for that
For the
one,
sec for the
the second one. But that one is after taxes, so that one's really not gross. So last year, I'm basing all these numbers on 2024 tax info.
Perfect.
So I paid 280 in quarterly taxes last year.
Okay.
So whatever that is divided by 12, I can also do the math there.
And then what was your on your tax return? What was your are you single? Actually, we should say single.
Yes, I am
On
single.
your
I'm
okay.
partnered, not married.
Okay, partnered but not married. Okay. So on your tax return, what was your income there?
It was a little different there because I had money that the business made, but I also kept quite a bit in the business account.
And how are your two businesses structured? Are they LLCs or S corps?
The first private practice is an S corp, and then the second private practice is, I think it's an LLC, but my accountant this year did something where we kind of looped it through the other one. I can't remember what that was called, but it was something with it's kind of how it was structured with the corporation commission.
Okay. So then
Not
would
to
it
be
be fair to stay with the W-2 and the first private practice? That brings your income to just about 86,000. And then
Mhm.
if you're netting 3,000 on the other one, that is net 36,000. So if we gross that up, it's probably closer to 50, give or take, depending on.
Yeah.
Do you have partners in any of these? Or are you paying both sides of Social Security? And then we have to kind of talk about where your expenses are. But so we'll just say like your gross is over 100,000.
Yeah, when I'm figuring in the taxes, I think it's about 127,000 last year.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what you're saying with the S corp is you pay. So for the S corp, whatever money is left over in the account, you're basically paying tax on. It's a flow through entity. And
Mm,
so you're saying you left the money in the business, but you probably paid tax on it at the end of the year because then
exactly.
the calendar year closes and you have 20 grand in there, even though you weren't in receipt of it. It's as if it flowed through to you, even though you didn't take it because you had expenses probably.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we'll say gross is around, fluctuating when you're self-employed, but around 125, 130,000. and you have lots of different income streams. Okay, perfect. So, and you live in the Southeast, 44 therapists. Okay, so then talk to me about the W 2. With the W 2, do you have benefits? Do you have health insurance, retirement, all that?
Yes, I
Okay,
do.
perfect. All right. And okay, do you want to run us through? So, what are you netting a month? So, like you said, you're netting definitely 3,000 a month on the second private practice. And what are you netting with your W 2 job and the other private practice?
Okay, so this is a little complicated. So I'm probably not actually netting 3,000 on my second private practice because I also paid I had to pay an additional like $3,400 in federal taxes last year and
Mhm.
1,000, 200 or so in state taxes.
And are you paying that because you're paying 5,000 and change quarterly? Are you paying that out of that 3,000? Because are
Yes,
you okay. Like, because your W-2 job, in theory, you shouldn't be having to pay quarterly taxes on, right?
exactly. Yes.
And your other part-time private practice, you're only bringing in not only, but relatively speaking, you're bringing in 1/3 of the income on that first private practice compared to the second. So I would say the quarterly is probably more attributed to the second private practice. It's
Yep.
the hit, your tax hit on that. So it's gross, but then you owe 5,300 at the end of the quarter.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so what's your net on your W-2? Why don't we start there?
Okay, so my net this is funny. The net on my W-2 is 19,167.
Okay, annually.
Yes, annually.
1,167
Yes.
on
Yes.
$75,000 of gross income?
Yes, because there's a lot of deductions.
Yeah, I would say so. That's what are all the deductions? Is that okay, yeah, walk me through that because that's basically 1,600 a month, which is not your normal take home for a $75,000 job.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that 1,600? Wow.
19,000 a year, yeah, 1,600 a month.
Okay, well, I'm taking home even less than that right now.
Okay, so why don't you walk me through
Okay.
what's going on?
It's interesting. Okay, yeah, I was just basing this on 2024. Right now, I'm literally taking home, like, 500 a month on that job.
On 75,000?
Yeah, on 75,000.
Okay, so walk
Okay.
me through that.
Okay, so this is based on last year. Let's see, I paid, 9,530 in taxes on that job,
Okay,
and then I paid 6,380 to a 403(b) before tax,
yep, okay.
and then I paid 7,370 to a 403(b) after tax.
Roth,
Yeah,
okay.
and then I paid 2,457, and then I paid 3,330 to an HSA, which I'm treating as an investment account,
Mhm.
and then I paid, 5,226 to my 401(a).
My gosh, okay. You have all the things.
Yeah, and then I paid okay, so then my W-2 job paid 820 to my HSA,
Okay,
and then they matched the 5,226 to the 401(a) because they match at 7%,
got it, okay.
and then I maxed out my Roth in 2024, which I tried to look up the exact amount. Was it like 6,500 last year?
Oh gosh, we've already switched to 2020. I'm already 6 months into 2025, so it might have been I think it's 7,000 now, so it must have been 6,500, yeah. And you do a Roth outside of work?
Yeah, so that one's not a
Yeah,
deduction.
okay, so yeah, we won't count that one as a deduction, but you did max out a Roth outside. So we'll get into your savings after. Okay, perfect. Okay, so you're basically so correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption here is that you're using your W-2 job for benefits and retirement, and you're living off your private practice money.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Well, I'm glad that's the reason we don't have any or much take home from that. You never know what you're gonna hear. So I was like, I didn't want to say anything until you gave me the numbers. But okay, so let me just see here. So you're basically whatever whoever your employer is, you have dual entitlement so that you have the 403(b) and the 457 and the 4A, which
Yes.
I've not seen an employer that offers all of them, but not to say it can't happen. Obviously, it does. So you are saving between just not even including employer match, but you yourself, and I jotted these down as quickly as I could. They're not going to be exact, but you're saving approximately 45,000 a year.
Yeah, before I would say before the Roth.
Yeah, before the Roth, not including the Roth outside of work, but out of your W-2 75,000, 45,000 of that is going to the 403(b), the Roth 403(b), the 457, the HSA, and the 401(a).
Yeah.
Yeah. So then of your 75, and that's not including taxes, right? So then 10,000, that gets you to 55. You're taking home a little bit. I don't know if you have state taxes in your place where you live. And then there's also the payroll taxes, right? Social Security and Medicare. So that would bring you to the 75. So that's great. So you're saving a boatload.
Yeah, pretty much as I can afford.
Yeah, I'm sure payroll was like, what is happening here? It's very rare to have someone do that. I think it's fantastic though. Okay, so you're maxing out. Then you're also doing a Roth outside of it. So you're saving over 50,000 a year between everything.
Mhm.
So I normally start with expenses, but I'm curious to see how much you have saved right now.
Okay, so going on to savings, so this aggressive form of saving, like, I've really been
Hmm.
able to do that more since starting the second private practice,
Okay.
but I have been working towards financial independence in some form since I was, like, 22. So,
Okay, great. So you've been doing this for 22 years.
yes, and my income has been relatively low. So,
Okay.
being a therapist, like, it's definitely not the highest paying job at points. So right now, okay, what I have in savings, I have 94,000 in my Roth.
Okay.
I have 21,000 in my 403b.
And
I
when you
have
say Roth, do you mean your Roth outside of work or your Roth 403b?
my Roth outside of work.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. So Roth IRA.
The 403b before and after tax is a total of
Got you.
about 20,000.
Okay.
And then I have 183 approximately in my 401a.
Okay.
And then I have 112 or so in my 457,
Okay.
and I have about 25,000 in my HSA.
Perfect.
And then I have about 67,000 in a high yield savings account.
Okay, great.
And then I have about 10,000 in personal checking and savings accounts and about 8,000 in my business account.
Okay, I'm going to sideline that as a separate business. Okay. Alrighty. And how long have you been doing this particular setup with the saving 50,000 a year?
Uh, Probably the last 2 years or so,
Okay.
maybe a
You
year
like
and a.
really turned the heat up recently.
Yeah, once my second private practice started once I started making money from that, which was
Um,
probably January of 2024.
so yeah, just about a year and a half then. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so let's see what you have. I don't know if you have your totals there, but I can add it up real quick here. Let's see. And do you have any debt while I'm doing this?
I have mortgage debt.
Okay, that's good debt. Okay, including, I'm not going to include your savings, just your high yield, because, you might need the savings for something. But I have down that you have $502,000, excluding the savings,
So that's including the high yield.
including the high yield. Yep.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, perfect. And then what do you have for the mortgage?
Okay, so the mortgage I have 2 properties.
Okay.
So my primary residence, I owe 449,000,
Okay.
and then my do you want, like, the average like, the estimated value of the property?
Sure.
The estimated value is about 900,000.
Okay, great. So you have about 50% equity in there.
Yeah, and then I have a rental property where I owe 133,000-ish,
Okay.
and that estimated value is about 180,000.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So you have about 500,000 in equity in your properties.
Yeah.
Amazing. Which property did you buy first? I'm just curious.
I bought the rental property first.
That was gonna be my guess.
Yeah. It's more affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And what are your interest rates?
Okay, so I bought them all recently, so the interest rate on the rental property is high. It's at
Okay.
7.625,
Okay.
and then the one on my primary residence is at 6.874.
Okay. It's actually you're the average, so you just didn't buy during COVID,
Yep.
so that's fine. And then, so you carry your primary, and then do you have rental income on the investment property? I presume.
I have rental income on the investment property.
So do you make money on it, or just break even?
I pretty much just break even at this point.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. But you're not putting money into it. Okay, great. But that's neutral in terms of we don't have other income coming over.
Right.
Okay, perfect. And then, so we did this a little backwards because I was just like a little stunned with the take home on the on the W-2. So why don't we go take a step back? And so you're netting a little less than 1,600 on the W-2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a little under 1,600, and then you said you have 800 that you're bringing in, or what are you netting on the first private practice?
Um, yeah, probably about, I don't know, let me just do, so maybe like 675-ish
Okay,
netting.
perfect. Netting, and then 3,000 net from the second private practice, but we still have to take into account that you have quarterly estimate taxes. For those that don't know what that is, that means that you send a check to the government every quarter because you had a tax filing where you owed money and the government does not like to wait for their money. So then they make you do quarterlies. Okay, so that means you're bringing home 5,275 a month, give or take.
Yeah.
Okay. And then walk me through your expenses.
Okay, so I didn't really like drill down into a lot of details with this one, but I
It's
spend
okay.
on average about 4,000 a month.
Okay.
Uh,
And then what's your mortgage of that? So your total expenses are 4,000 and how much of that is your mortgage?
so my part of the mortgage is about $775.
Okay. And is the house in both names or
No, it's just in my name. I live with my partner. He pays the other half of our part of it, but we also have an ADU on the property,
okay.
and that person pays 1850.
Oh, got it. Okay, so I was gonna say this doesn't math for your not for your mortgage rate and mortgage amount.
Right.
Oh, okay. So you have an ADU on the property. Okay, so you pay 775, you said, and he pays 70 or they pay 775?
My partner pays, yeah, he pays about 775 as well. We pay the same amount, and then whatever's left over from the renter.
Five, okay. 1, 2, and then 1,800 for the ADU. And what is the ADU? Is it like a one-bedroom, one bath?
Yeah, kind of. It's like a loft, one
Okay.
bedroom.
And it's a separate entrance, separate building structure?
It's under the same roof, but it is
Okay.
separate.
Cool. Okay.
It was onto the property,
Okay. Okay, so then so is your mortgage $3,350?
approximately, like 3,400 with, escrow.
Escrow. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. So your expenses and you split and then do you split some of your other bills with your partner as well? Like
Yes.
utilities and okay.
The only shared, financial thing we do is we have a shared checking account, and we both contribute the same amount per month to that.
And that's just for household stuff. So you do that so you can okay.
Exactly.
But all your other finances are separate.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And how old is your partner?
He is 58.
Okay. Okay, so expenses are 4,000, you're bringing in 5,275. Man, you have lots of income streams. I think you, like, win for this year. I can't go my memory's not good enough to remember all the people I've spoken to over the last 8 years, but you definitely win for this year because you have W-2, private practice 1, private practice 2, and then an investment property, and then an ADU, which is like another investment property, really, so you have 5. Oh, we don't give out awards for these, but you definitely win for this year.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay. You have obviously you've leftover money of 1,275. I am just gonna take a shot in the dark here and say you do not need my help with budgeting. So it's not why you came on the show.
I mean, I think I probably would wanna take a closer look at my budget because I haven't been paying as much attention to it since my partner moved in,
Okay.
but, yeah, I think generally I have a pretty good handle on that.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. So talk to me. So the only debt we have lots of saving. What's the like? What are you? What's the plan and what are your questions?
Okay, so my plan is, clearly I have a lot of jobs right now.
Yes.
I've been working towards financial independence for 22 years, being a therapist and, coming into my job with about $75,000 of student loan debt, which I finished paying it off when I was 35.
Wow. Oh my God. So the beginning of your career was just paying that off. I'm sure.
Yes. Yes. It felt like it took forever.
Yeah, well, it did. It took 13 years.
Yeah, it took 13 years. I mean, half of that was my undergrad, and then I worked for nonprofits for a few years and made like almost no money at all.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Okay,
downside.
to get a master's degree, so I did that, and that definitely boosted my income, but it's been slow to kinda rise, and it's required a lot of effort on my part, to not just do my one job, but to have a second job, and now
Mhm.
a third job.
Yeah.
So, I'm sick of working 3 jobs is my point, and I'm ready to go down to, like, 20 to 25 hours a week.
Okay.
Financially, I don't feel like I'm there yet, so my plan right now is to work for approximately 1 more year at all 3 jobs.
Okay.
I think I have that in me. But at that point, I would like to go down to, leaving my W-2 job and then just working with the 2 private practices.
Okay, have you run the math on maybe working 2 more years with all the jobs?
No.
because the amount you're saving is so material, you know? I would
Mhm.
almost say if you were gonna give up one job, I would give up the one that you're making the least on, private practice 1, the one you're taking 800.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing, like, that job would change a bit if I quit the other t so the W-2 job requires 40 hours a
Yeah.
week.
Yep.
My private practice is, like, 3 hours a week,
Okay.
and then my second private practice, I mean, currently, I can do it in probably 15 to 20 hours a week,
Okay.
but what I see happening is stepping up my solo private practice where the one where I'm actually seeing clients.
Mhm.
The second one is I'm managing people who are seeing clients.
Okay, and you're not seeing clients on the second one. Okay, so well, let's math the numbers. So when you say fire, to me that means completely retire. So you're thinking just reduce your hours and not completely retire.
Yeah, I think if I was gonna be completely financially independent, I need 6 more years at my current savings rate.
Yeah. You need more. Because your expenses are low, right? But relative to being fully retired.
Yeah.
So basically you wouldn't be able to save at this level, right? If you hold back. So to give you the rough math, and I'm sure you know the math, but the benchmark for distributions is 4%, right? So in dollars, 4% off of that number is 20,000 a year, right? That you could
Mhm.
live on. But if you retire, your expenses are going to go up in the theory that health insurance is going to be a lot more expensive,
Mhm.
like a lot more expensive. Potentially. You can go on the marketplace, but I would say you would wanna plan for between a 500 and 1,000 a month for health insurance. So that's a big change to your budget, right? If it ends up being closer to the $1,000 mark versus the $500 mark for health insurance.
Yeah. I mean, I'm clearly, like, not able to stop everything right now. So
Right, yeah, yeah.
my thought is, like, I'm pretty much at what they call coast fi right now, which is, like,
Okay.
I could be okay at age 62.
Yep,
So I could go down to and if I do 1 more year, then I'm in even better shape with that. So if I go
yeah,
down to 20 to 25 hours per week at that point, one option is I could just make enough to pay for my healthcare and pay
yep,
taxes and live off
and pay
of.
your bills and then not touch any of your savings. Because if you that's really the key, right? You either need to have more in savings, right, or not touch it. Those are the
Well,
2
yeah,
options.
I wouldn't be touching my savings. It would
Okay.
just need to make enough to cover my expenses and taxes and healthcare.
You would make enough to cover that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that would be my plan. So and the other thing is, like, with the private practice, like, right now I see, like, 3 clients a week on average, maybe
Mhm.
less, 2 to 3, honestly.
Okay.
So I could step that up to about 10,
Okay.
and then I could and the other thing is with my second private practice, I'm in the process of scaling it.
Okay.
So I'm making what I'm making right now, but there's an opportunity to make 2 to almost 3 times that
Okay.
without having to do 2 to 3 times the hours of work.
Right. That makes sense. Well, let's say we just do rough math. So let's say you add what you're adding, and we do what you do one more year of that, right?
Mhm,
Year and a half. And let's say we don't know what happens with the stock market, but let's say we have a good stock market and you're looking at these numbers here. I will just say that your total account values get up to closer to 600,000, right? And we'll just say you're 45, 46. It's close enough. So we'll say 45, then you don't touch it, right? Ideally, it earns, 7.2% compounding interest. And then at 55, you have 1.2 million, right? And then
mhm,
maybe you are doing the private practice, you're working 25 hours a week, you're comfortable and you stick with that. So you leave your account alone till 60, right?
mhm,
And then that would get it up, hopefully wouldn't double, but maybe get closer to 1.8, right? Million. And then maybe you wait till 62 to touch it because 62 is the earliest time to take Social Security. If you listen to the podcast, you know I don't like that idea. Not to say my general rule of thumb is do not take it early. Obviously, you want to reevaluate it when you get closer to those numbers, but I normally say don't take it then. But you would be 62. Hopefully, your accounts would be closer to 2 million. That would generate then 80,000 in income, not including Social Security, give or
mhm.
take. And you don't know what's going to happen with the market over the next 15 years. But by not touching it, you'd be in a much more comfortable spot, right? And
Yeah,
then if you can support yourself with by getting rid of the W-2. And I would just factor in health insurance. I feel like it's not talked about enough, and it's very expensive when you have to buy it yourself, especially when you own businesses, right? Because you're going to have the goal is to have income, and if you have income, your health insurance is going to be very expensive. Those are the
Yeah.
options. You either have no income, which means the budget doesn't work, or you have income and your health insurance is going to be through the roof. Those are like the two. That's it. Because I've owned a business long enough to have, if I could figure it out, there's a better way, but it's just the way it is. It's just very expensive if you have income. And it's having a business, you want to have income, right? Because you want to be able to support yourself and have that. But it just means your health insurance is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have group coverage unless you offer it to your employees. And usually, with offering it to your employees, you have to have 51% participation to get small business coverage, which
Oh,
means if you have one employee, then it has to be more than just yourself to get the group coverage. You're going to have individual coverage. It's just not as good. It's just
oh,
going to be more expensive. So I would
yeah.
just factor that in. But I think that if you can get those accounts closer to like all in at 600, 550, 575, somewhere near there over the next year, year and a half, and then you just don't touch them, I think you'll be cruising.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good.
And then live on the two other practices. And you will have to ramp it, as you said, you have to ramp it up a little with your expenses being at 4,000, right? To give yourself a bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
Because right now the two practices generate roughly 3,675, right?
Yeah.
There is a bit of a gap.
Yeah, I mean, just right now, I can't really it's with the age of the second business, like,
Huh?
that's kind of its natural process of growing, and then with the first one, I'm really limited with how many hours I can
Yeah,
do
with
out.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like and there's different levers I can pull with both of those, like, I could see 20 clients myself per week and see what the business is doing if the business is not growing much, or I could see 5 clients per week if the business is really growing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would just bulk up your emergency savings a little bit to give yourself, like, more because obviously you have a lot, but then knowing that when you quit the W-2 job, you're gonna have a gap, right? And you have 2 properties, which means that if something breaks, it can be expensive, and you have
Mhm,
2 of those, so that you'll have, like, a slight gap in income and expenses in the beginning, right? While you work until you have the bandwidth for the hours to, like, up the income on one of the businesses.
mhm. What would you recommend for how much I should have in my high yield savings account?
What I would do, some people might say this is a little more extreme. I would probably try to get it closer to, like, my gut would say 100,000 just because you have 2 properties. Just because as you know, if something goes wrong, it always all happens at once and it always happens at the worst time has been my luck in life. So hopefully you don't have that luck. But like you quit your W-2 job, you're not able to ramp right away on your other, and then like something expensive happens on one of the properties that's like you would want to make sure that you have that cash available to float yourself with the income and expense gap initially, and then, like, if something happened with the property,
Mhm. Okay.
you wouldn't have to put it on a credit card. That might be, like, a little too cautious, but what I'll say is you have a lot of balls in the air, and if this is your period of a year, year and a half to really bulk up your savings and put yourself in a good spot, I would
Yeah.
just keep your head down, do what you're doing, and then I would just up the high yield savings as well so that that way you're in a really good position when it comes to having 2 businesses, and it's all on you, right? You have 2 businesses, 2 properties. That's a lot of pressure, even just from a financial standpoint of
Yeah.
having to keep everything going, and I think cash will at least eliminate the financial pressure. It won't do anything for anything else, but at least then, you get a health bill for, as a business owner who doesn't have great health insurance, you get a bill for a mammogram for $1,000. It's not gonna, like, make you cry
Right. Yeah.
because you have 1,000 or 100,000, 75,000 in the bank, and you're like, "You know what? It's just part of the process. This is just more expensive now, and that's okay. I
Yeah, it
planned
gives
for it."
an emotional cushion too.
Yeah, exactly. So just, like, that makes because, like, when you're having started like, the business and also bought a business, I also have 2 properties. I also have to deal with now I'm married, but before that, I had to do my own health insurance. And so you have a long day at work, you're running a business, there's a lot of stressors with that, and then you find out you had to go to the doctor for something, and it's, like, for whatever reason, not covered or your deductible is pretty high with some of these plans, and then you get a bill for, like, 900, $1,500. It's a good way to, like, have a miserable night, I think, you know?
Right. So that makes me think that if I start to make more money with the second business, which I'm hoping will happen, I'm projecting will happen,
Okay.
because of a few things in place, that I could take maybe if I have, like if I'm making 5,000 from that per month while still working my W-2 job, I could maybe just take that extra couple of thousand and put it in the high yield savings account and just
Yeah,
start that up.
that's what I would do. I would give yourself a really good financial cushion because it does take time to ramp a business. And just because you want it to grow doesn't mean it will grow. Some of these things take, like construction takes more time, than you anticipate. Just so
Yeah,
then that way you're not under financial stress. You
right.
have more peace of mind knowing I have time. I worked really hard to get here. Now I have time to grow this the way I want to grow it. Right. Because you don't want to be forced to take clients you don't want to take because you have to pay bills.
Yep,
It's not that's not the purpose of what you're doing, right? You want to build the life you want, it sounds like. So you want to have that financial cushion so you can say, this is not a good client. Even though I need the money this week, I'm going to use the high yield savings because I don't want to take this client. It's not a good fit.
right. Yeah. So other questions I have are more they're not like really in-depth questions, but just kind of brief
Okay.
questions about the properties. So
Sure.
clearly, I bought them when interest rates were higher than they've been in recent
Hmm.
history. Um, I want to refinance when it makes sense with interest rates.
Hmm.
However, if I'm leaving my W-2 job, in approximately a year to a year and a half, and if interest rates really haven't gone down much in that time period, I don't know, what would your recommendation be to just kinda keep them and hope I can I mean,
You
I
could
don't
you could try to refinance, but
later.
later, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't refinance unless it financially makes sense because there is a cost to doing it and time, and you don't have a lot of time at the moment. So when you do go to refinance, if you choose to do it in the future, you just as a self-employed individual, it's just more work to refinance. You're not just giving them a W-2, right? They're going to look at your bank accounts. They're going to want more tax returns. I refinance and I own my own business. You can. It's just a little bit of a different process. And it depends on where your income is, right? What you would qualify for. So you just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a reality in which I could qualify to refinance the rental property, but I
Yeah.
couldn't qualify to
Fine. Yeah. Yeah. But you also have a lot of equity in it. So if it appraises really high and the mortgage amount is like it's below 50%, maybe at that time it's 40% of property value based on your income, you might. So I would just cross that bridge when you get there. And
Okay,
just know that it just takes a little bit more time as a self employed person. They just want more information from you.
okay, yeah. Alright, that's good.
Yeah. But you want it to be a material, like you'd want it to be like, I think they say usually around a basis point where you'd be saving money.
Yeah, 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 and it just hasn't
It
gotten there
hasn't
yet.
happened yet.
So,
Yeah.
my other question is just in preparation for this podcast, I was looking at my mortgage
Hmm.
company's website, and I am paying bi-monthly, I guess biweekly, payments. So I pay my monthly mortgage payment in 2 parts throughout the month. So I'm doing the equivalent of 1 extra payment per year, and that's on both of the properties.
That's great. I didn't realize that. Okay. That's fantastic.
And I know I'm paying 100 extra on the rental property. I didn't have time to get to how much extra I'm paying on the primary residence, but I think it's around 100 or 200 per month. So, but the thing is, according to mortgage calculator, the biweekly mortgage calculator I was looking at, I should be paying my mortgages off with both of those things, like, approximately 10 years early.
Yeah. So your effective interest rate is actually different than what you listed. Did you look at that?
Well, I no, I didn't know that, so I haven't but I was just looking at the
Hmm.
biweekly mortgage calculator, but here's the thing. So, that being what it is, I looked on my mortgage company's website, and they don't have that as my projection. They have my projection as being, like, 3 years earlier. And I asked them about that this morning, and of course, the chat person couldn't give me much
Yeah.
information, but it was shocking to me that they were saying I would have to pay it, like, an extra 7 years.
So I would sit down with the mortgage person at the bank. I would just book a meeting with the mortgage person.
But this is, like, an online company, so
Oh, well, they have to. I mean, the chat person you're dealing with is not the mortgage broker. So
yeah,
see if you can get an appointment with a mortgage broker and to go over the numbers with you.
okay. Would that be, like, my mortgage broker, like the mortgage broker I worked with when I bought the property?
You could do that or whoever is holding your mortgage now.
Okay, so
Who's, yeah,
it's United Wholesale Mortgage.
I might not have a mortgage broker. Start with your actual mortgage broker. So I
Okay,
think they sold it there, right? They sold it
Yes.
to United Wholesale. Yeah, and ask that person because yeah, generally, if you're making an extra payment a year, it significantly reduces the time to pay off. So you have a 30-year, and then in theory, you'd be paid off about I would normally have said 7 years early, not 10, but
It's it's
you're running it.
yeah, because 'cause I'm doing the bike and the extra payment. That's why it would
Yeah,
be
that's why I said 10. Okay. Yeah, because I would say normally it would just be 7, but yeah, so you're running the math on that. So yeah, I would go and I don't know why they're only showing 3, but I would start with your mortgage broker and start with them and then call United from there. But yeah, generally making an extra payment and you're doing more than an extra payment because you're paying twice would significantly take time off of your mortgage. So then you may not even need to really refinance unless there's a pretty significant rate drop, right? Because your effective rate is lower than what your stated rate is, right?
huh.
Because you're making those principal payments.
How do I figure that out?
I don't know, actually. I wonder if there's a calculator online that would tell you what your effective rate would be.
Oh,
Does that make sense though? Because like your stated rate of interest has you paying it off in 30 years, but by
uh,
making those payments, you're reducing the amount of interest you're paying, right?
mhm.
Because you're going to be done with, we'll say, we'll use the 10 years. You're going to be done in 20. So you're not paying the same amount of interest. So what you would have to do is you could use the 20-year number, figure out what you paid, what the principal amount was, what the interest is, and then divide the amount paid into the interest amount. And that should give you your interest, what you would end up having paid in interest, like your interest amount. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into that a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. So it's basically because, like, let's just say you took out $500,000 and your interest was going to be, we'll just say it was 250,000, right?
Mhm.
On that, or 200,000 in interest. And then now you're only going to end up paying 125 in interest. So that's the difference. So therefore, your rate would technically, so you would run it as if it was a lower rate, right? To calculate that interest. This is
Yeah.
a lesser amount.
Okay. Yeah.
There should be an
Yeah.
online I'll look to see if there's an online calculator where it would tell you what your effective rate is, but you could just math it to figure out the interest, but I'll look for a calculator, effective mortgage calculator. But with that, if you just confirm all the numbers with your mortgage broker and then unite it, then I would say I wouldn't there's not a huge rush to refinance it, but it would save you money, right? If the rate goes down, then maybe you just make a regular payment and you don't need to do and when you refinance, you could always refinance to a 20-year instead of a 30-year if the rate goes down because your payment would be the same or closer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you did still do principal, it'd be less than 20 years.
Okay. Yeah,
That's what
it was demoralizing to see that this morning. I was like,
well,
I kind of
check the math. It doesn't just because they're showing that doesn't mean it's right.
okay.
And it doesn't mean that United doesn't sell it to another mortgage provider, right? Like you could so,
Yeah.
yeah, I would check the math on it. And then you might have to call them and just say, "Are you attributing this correctly? This is what I'm paying. This is the math." But I would start with the mortgage broker who's going to be very familiar with it, and then I would double check their work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just because they put it out there doesn't mean it's right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. In our business in finance, we double check a lot of people's work, and I would say we find mistakes every day, material mistakes every day from other companies.
Yeah. I mean, that's a costly mistake. Like if they're thinking that that's accurate and that is actually how somehow the loan is being paid.
Yeah, I mean, when I say we find material mistakes every day in our practice, every day.
Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately, I just am training a new person, and he was like, "Well, how does everyone make mistakes?" I was like, "It is what it is. I don't know how they all make mistakes, but we know that they make mistakes, which is why we check every other company's work that we work with, and
Mm.
that's why I have more staff. And it's just part of being in financial services. There are mistakes made that are material every day. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were making a mistake.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's just a lot of moving pieces with these, and there's a lot of different forms, right? The mortgage industry is in financial services, and there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of forms, a lot of input. It doesn't it's like things get messed up. The more stuff that's happening, there's more likelihood there's a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like for our industry, more I think mortgages would be in finance somewhere, but for personal financial services, applications for an IRA used to be one page. They're 50. So just think about the odds of a mistake from one page to 50 pages per person.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I truly thought it was like a computer doing this math, so I'm thinking like, "Oh, is there a human behind this?"
Well, computers make mistakes because the data has to be input, right? And if there's
Mhm.
a mistake on one form of 50, it just gets repeated by technology over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Okay.
So it could be a computer doing it.
So even though it's showing my payments as accurate on the dashboard, it the somewhere else it might be a mistake.
There could be. Yeah, I would check it. I think that you calculated at 10 years, they're showing it at 3. I would rerun the numbers.
They're doing that on both my loans.
Yeah, so I would yeah, but I would talk to your mortgage person and make sure that your calculations are right, and then and get the advice from the mortgage broker about how to approach the mortgage company if your mortgage broker agrees with how you're calculating it.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't like I don't know if United's making a mistake. What I'm saying is what I see in the industry is there's mistakes every day that are material. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a mistake given how many mistakes we see. Like we see trade errors, misspellings, and we use computers too. So it's
I
just
mean,
that if it gets input
yeah,
at once and it's wrong, it just gets repeated by the technology.
right, but if that was actually how my payments were applied over the years and I ended up paying extra payments, extra amount of interest because of that, like, that's a lawsuit,
Yeah.
you know?
I'm just I've been in the industry 20 years. I'm just telling you mistakes happen. So I wouldn't there's 2 things. You can either accept their math and be like, "That's upsetting," or you could check their math and see if they're wrong, and if they are wrong, then you have to talk to them about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The other option is to do nothing, but that's not what I would recommend. I would check the math.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna check the math.
Yeah. And then if your mortgage broker agrees and says it's wrong, you call United and having double checked the math. I'd probably have the math already done and you have to talk to the right person at United, which probably means talking to Chad and finding out if you can get a manager or get someone in the mortgage department. It's not going to be easy to do this. And then say, here's the math. I confirmed it with my mortgage broker who sold me the mortgage, and it looks like you're displaying this wrong on the portal. Maybe it's just displayed wrong on the portal, and on the back end, they have different numbers. We don't know, right? So,
Mhm.
or maybe
Yeah,
the mortgage broker is going to say, yeah, the way you're doing it, the math is wrong. I don't, I have no idea.
yeah,
But
okay.
I'm just saying that we see lots, I see in finance, I see lots of mistakes on a regular basis. And I would actually say I see more mistakes now that the technology has improved.
Huh, okay.
Because the compliance has gotten really robust, and the more compliance means the more forms, and it's just if you just think about, like, processing if we process somebody if we have a household and we're processing 4 IRAs, that's 200 sheets of paper, like, electronically, and it's, like, impossible to check everything if you think about it from a human perspective, which means it's all just getting duplicated and duplicated and duplicated by computers, which means if there was a mistake somewhere in there, initially, it gets buried and it's hard to find.
Mhm, okay, okay.
So, yeah, so I would make the phone call with the mortgage broker, say, I want to run through the math. I think United might be displaying this incorrectly, or if there's a mistake. And then I would have all of that information and go to United and meet with like somebody who has decision making authority.
Mhm,
So, like manager, mortgage broker, someone who is higher level than your customer support person.
right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And hopefully, I mean, I hope you're right and they're wrong, and then they just fix it, which wouldn't be a huge
I
deal.
mean, there's no reality in which, like, their math would make sense.
Yeah. So then they would have to fix it. And trust me, I mean, all sorts of ways they can fix mistakes.
Yeah, okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah, any questions about the properties. Um, in general, I just wanted to get your take on my overall financial picture. The 40-hour a week job, like, I can't do it for much longer. So, I need to find a way to exit. So
I think the key would be doing it for another year, year and a half, and like bulking up, as I said, your emergency fund just to give you more breathing room for when you stop the W-2. And then not touching the retirement and really leaving it alone till you get into your, like, early 60s, and then, obviously, you've done a very good job at budgeting and saving and being really diligent, getting all your loans paid off. It's obviously not set it and forget it, you have to see how the accounts are growing and monitoring them year over year, but I think as long as you get those numbers up a little bit higher, not significantly compared to what you've already done, but I would try for a year, year and a half in the current position, and maybe start yourself, like, a countdown of when you're gonna be done with the W-2, and
mm,
then give yourself that bandwidth to have time with the emergency fund to grow the other private practice. It meets where your expenses are.
mhm, growing the emergency fund and growing the private practice.
Yeah, but I don't so if you get your emergency fund up high enough, I don't think you really need to grow the private practice now. If you got it to match, that would be great, but even if you say it's at 3,800 and my expenses are 4,000 and you have to borrow 200 from the emergency fund for 6 months, each
Mhm.
month, that's fine because that gives you the bandwidth to grow it. but then you
Yeah.
have that buffer. And then, as I said, hopefully you have better luck than me, but what happens to me is then in that period of time, I'd have like an expensive house issue.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Do you see anything
Yeah.
that I'm missing?
Do you have estate? The only thing I would say is estate documents, maybe. You don't need life insurance, right?
Mhm.
No one's relying on you for income, that you've said.
Correct.
So I would just say, healthcare proxy power of attorney in case something should happen to you. You have a lot of things going on that you would maybe need help with. And I would probably at this point, because you have so many assets, I would also consider doing a will or using a probate skipping mechanism.
Mhm.
So maybe a revocable trust or adding somebody. I don't know if you can do a TODD on the investment property, which is a transfer on death on the deed.
Oh,
Or
okay.
yeah, or you could do a revocable trust. The trust is just a probate skipping mechanism. You're still in control for the investment property, even your primary residence. Like I don't know if you want it to go to your partner or you want it to go to family or but you have a lot of things. So I would look at doing what I would call a simple estate plan, just making sure all your accounts have beneficiaries, a power of attorney, healthcare proxy, just in case you got sick, God forbid, or you weren't able to manage all your accounts. You would need help with that. They would need a power of attorney, whoever that would be. And then just making sure the real property doesn't trigger probate. So, should anything happen to you, that it passes to whom you want to without going through the court system.
Okay. So right now I have like a basic will, but I don't know if certain parts of that are in place.
Yeah. So the will goes right through the courts. Everyone doesn't realize that. So the will goes to the court system. So ideally, skip that if you can.
And I do that through a revocable
Lawyer.
trust.
Yeah, or adding a beneficiary to the deed. So it just depends on your state. Like in Florida, they call it a ladybird deed, or actually, ladybird deed or TODD. There's like probate skipping mechanisms besides a trust. It depends on what's available in your state.
Okay.
Yeah, it's state specific for estate planning.
So you're saying, like, for example, on a particular retirement account, just making sure that there's a beneficiary within that system?
Correct. And then for the real property, you can also add a beneficiary depending if it's available in your state.
Okay.
Availability to add a beneficiary to the deed is state specific.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it's not, there's other alternatives. Once again, they can be state specific, but it's either adding someone to the deed as a beneficiary. What that is, you have to check for your location. And then the other alternative is a revocable trust to hold the properties to then be distributed should anything happen to you. And the will is a great safety net and you should have it, but the will would send your heirs through probate.
Okay. And you're just saying, like, that's just a pain in the butt. So it'd be nice to try to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, it's a pain in the butt because the courts are open 9 to 5, right? So it depends who your heirs are, if they can get to the courts. It is also depending on the probate court where you live. It could be somewhere between 6 and 24 months.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, because you're involving lawyers, which, my sister's a lawyer, so nothing bad about lawyers, but they don't move the fastest. And you have to
Mhm.
pay legal fees, right? Because you have to have a lawyer.
Yeah. Okay.
So whoever you're leaving it to would have to hire an attorney.
Gotcha. Okay. And then another question. Would you recommend that I get long-term disability insurance?
You could. Yeah, you definitely could. With your job, it's not particularly physical, correct?
Yeah.
But it's mental.
Yes.
Yeah, you could look at it and see what the quotes are. If you belong to a professional organization, see what they recommend. You would want long term disability so that if you had, it would be more of a mental thing, right? Where mentally you got injured and couldn't do your job.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you could look at that too.
Okay. And
But
then what if
wouldn't say you need life insurance.
okay, yeah, I'm not thinking about getting that really.
Yeah.
Thinking more about how do I take care of myself if something horrible
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, you could look at the long-term disability.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have other thoughts or anything that you think I'm missing or
No, I think you're doing a good job. Obviously, I didn't say this to you, but you make sure that you have good sound investments, you know what you have in all your accounts and you monitor them. I would make sure that you have beneficiaries on everything and then to take it the step further because you have real property, just making sure that that also is set up to go to heirs. So that if God forbid anything happened to you, because you have a lot of stuff right now, which is great. You have a lot of different accounts, right? You have 2 properties, the ADU. It would be if God forbid anything happened to you, or if you got really sick, right, and you couldn't make decisions, it would be it would be a bit complicated. So that's why I would get the healthcare proxy power of attorney, so
okay.
someone could step in and help you.
Okay. And that's just a form like I would find to
Yeah,
be able. makeup
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. And you could do, I mean, even the revocable, it's like pretty simple estate planning documents. It's nothing very complicated. So you could have a lawyer do it. I'm sure you could find it online with one of the legal sites as well, but just your basic mock up. And then, yeah, I would also look at the long term disability because when you go to owning your own businesses and not W-2, you're not going to have any of those benefits anymore.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But that's why this gives you time to get all this stuff done, you know?
Yeah, like, while I'm still working all 3 jobs.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
that you have a lot of free time, but, like, you could see what your coverage for long-term disability is at work, right, with W-2, because it usually have something you can opt into, and then say, "Okay, I wanna give myself something like that similarly with my businesses." And then sometimes they even have legal programs where if you sign up through work benefits, they'll give you, like, a basic all the basic documents. I don't know if that's offered through work for you. Yeah, but no, you're in a good spot. So I think the key really is like just keep your head down for like 12 more months. Maybe if you get to 12 months, you could do a little longer. I would do it. And then, yeah, let your accounts cook for, another 15 years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jane, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing your stories. You definitely win for having the most incomes and probably the highest savings ratio for the year.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And for all of our lovely listeners, you can follow along on our Instagram at Future Rich Podcast and also on our website, www.futurerichpodcast.com. And if you're interested in being a guest, and you can reach out to us either on the website or on Instagram. Time for our disclaimer. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance references are historical and do not guarantee future results. Make sure that you consult with your own legal, tax, and/or financial advisor before making any decisions.